Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 277. The hits for Ghislaine Maxwell and her co-conspirators keep on coming. It was announced today that the grand jury is still convened, and they are still investigating the co-conspirators who were involved in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. Now, we have known that, especially here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show. We have most certainly known that more indictments were on the way. I have talked about that fact extensively here, and I have been adamant that the charges we see Maxwell getting hit with now, the original charges, those were just placeholders. Those were a reason to bring her in, get her arrested, and get the ball rolling. But there is most assuredly more coming down the pipe. And you see this especially in federal indictments all the time. It starts out with a couple of charges, and then before you know it, you have 15, 20, 30 charges in some instances that you're fighting. And I expect nothing different here. And I also expect that, as I've said numerous times in the past, the second other people start getting arrested, I expect this to become a RICO case. There's no other way that they can prosecute this than besides using RICO. Once other people are arrested, indicted, and called co-conspirators, it is obviously a criminal conspiracy. And then there is no way that it is not also a RICO case. Now, this situation tonight, when we're getting this information from the prosecution about the grand jury, it's a pretty big deal, right? It's a big nugget to get that confirmation, because what it does is it puts pressure on the co-conspirators. Just them knowing now that this grand jury is in session still and that they're still investigating into these co-conspirators and they're hearing evidence, it has to be a nightmare scenario for everybody involved. And also, I don't think that they would announce this or let this be brought to light unless other arrests were imminent. Now, I would say within the next few weeks, we should see more arrests here, but who knows, with the way the justice system works in this country and how screwed up things are. I don't know if that's the case, but usually when you see signs like this and you hear these rumblings like we did before Ghislaine was arrested, remember, usually more arrests are coming and the indictments are about to be unsealed. So that's where we're at right now, and that is most certainly the biggest news of the day. So let's jump into our article from Law and Crime and take a look at what they have to say about this situation, considering they have been such a good resource throughout this whole entire ride when it comes to the ins and outs of the legal part of the case, right? Because that stuff's hard to understand. We're not lawyers. I mean, most of us aren't. I'm sure a couple of people out there might be who are listening, or a few people, but for the vast majority of us, we're just trying to figure out, make odds of ends from some of this legal stuff. So it's nice to have a resource like Law and Crime. The author of this article is Colin Kalmbacher. Headline: Prosecutors reveal secret investigation of Ghislaine Maxwell, other Epstein co-conspirators is ongoing. And again, usually they won't reveal stuff like this unless things are already in motion, because they don't want to tip their hand, right? They're playing it close to the vest. They don't want these people to lawyer up, clam up, try and run, whatever it may be. So usually they play this really close to the vest. So I'm wondering what the motivation is behind the scenes for them coming out and putting this on the record. Federal prosecutors in New York City revealed there is an ongoing and separate grand jury investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, and alleged sex trafficking accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell in various court documents filed Friday afternoon. So already we're seeing that the case is blooming, right? We're seeing that it's growing. You add a little bit of water to it, in this case more evidence, and then before you know it, your crops start to bloom. And that's what's going on here for the prosecution. They're adding water, they're adding the evidence, they're building their case, and things are growing exponentially. As the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, SDNY, has stated publicly, the investigation into the conduct of the defendant and, in this case, and other possible co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein remains active, the government noted in a letter motion to the U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan. The full scope and details of that investigation, however, have not been made public. And that's where we're at, right? That's what we've been discussing, and that's what we're doing, is speculating on who might be involved in this. And when you follow all of the evidence and you look at all of the players who have been on the Epstein stage throughout this whole entire disgusting ordeal, well, it's obvious who they're talking about here. The core four, most certainly, maybe Jean-Luc Brunel, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of surprise names that we aren't even expecting to be in there. Because it really looks to me like they're going for the neck here. It looks like what they're doing is they're really blooming this case out. They're going to have several different investigations going, a ton of evidence going on, and then they're going to tie it all up together in a pretty neat bow in one big gigantic RICO case. And once that occurs, I know, you're probably sick of hearing it by now, but once that occurs, this becomes a whole new ballgame. Just look how everybody who gets slapped with a RICO case fights tooth and nail to try and make it so it is not a RICO case. Take a look at NXIVM, take a look at R. Kelly. Prosecutors declined to share any details about that additional grand jury investigation, but offered to provide them to Nathan in private under judicial lock and key if she requests such information. So what they're saying is look, this investigation is going on. We are diving deep into these co-conspirators. We have our net thrown wide, and we're going to see what the catch is, the catch of the day is. And they're telling the Judge Nathan, that if she wants to see what they're working on in private, they would gladly show her what's going on. But as of now, this stuff is still secret, right? This is still sealed under the grand jury, and they're going to continue to investigate in the confines of the jurors' room. So it's very interesting to see just exactly where this ends up and how many people are under indictment right now by sealed indictments, right? Indictments we don't know about. And obviously the most interesting part for us is, when are those indictments going to be unsealed? To the extent it would be useful to this court for the government to further elaborate on the nature of the ongoing grand jury investigation, the government is prepared to file a supplemental letter specifically on that subject, ex parte, and under seal should the court request such an explanation. A footnote in a separate letter motion explained. So again, that letter that they filed is just letting the court know that they'll gladly bring to the court's attention what's going on in the grand jury hearings right now, and that it is still under seal because they have not finished their investigations. But obviously, Judge Nathan has incredible power when it comes to overseeing what goes on here, and they are going to do whatever she wants to do. If she wants this letter filed, of course the government is going to do that, because the government obviously feels like they have a strong case here either way. One of those motions was filed in reference to an August 17th letter filed by Maxwell's criminal defense attorneys. The government asked the court to redact certain portions of that already filed letter in a motion that is heavily redacted itself. And you can come and check out the article, obviously, at Law and Crime, and they have all of the documents posted with hyperlinks, so you can go and read them yourselves. We'll read through this redacted letter real quick, but it's, like I just said, heavily redacted. As described above, the grand jury investigation is active and ongoing and resulted in new charges being brought just last month in this case. Redacted, two big gigantic black boxes of redactions. In sum, the government respectfully submits that the exhibits to the defense letter, which consist entirely of filings that have been ordered sealed by other judicial officers, should also be filed under seal in this case while the grand jury investigation remains ongoing. For the same reasons, the government proposes redacting any portions of the defense letter that, big time redaction once again. Accordingly, the government respectfully requests the court permits the redactions to the defense letter proposed in Exhibit A hereto, and that both the unredacted defense letter and the exhibits thereto remain under seal until further order of the court. Additionally, because the instant letter discusses the government's ongoing investigation and references, about 3 sentences redacted, the government also respectfully requests that it be permitted to file a redacted version of this letter on the public docket, and that the unredacted version of this letter, as well as Exhibit A to this letter, be filed under seal. So, again, I am not a lawyer, right? But I think it's a little bit of a tell that they want this on the public docket, but they want it redacted. I think they want the public to understand that there is more coming down the pipe. I think the prosecutors are keenly aware of the scrutiny that they're under to do the right thing in this case. Because let me tell you what, if they don't, I'm not even kidding you. It is pitchforks and torches time. The government's second motion requests that the SDNY deny a recent request from Maxwell's counsel in certain civil cases to file discovery materials produced by the government under seal. In other words, it appears that Maxwell's criminal case is becoming, perhaps unexplainably, entwined with the protective order for the discovery in the years-old and long-settled defamation case between herself and Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts. The government attempts to explain the convoluted situation. So basically what they're saying here is that Maxwell is trying to use the protective order for the discovery from the years-old case in this new case and trying to intertwine the two. And as the authors just stated here, it most certainly has become a convoluted situation that is not easy to follow. And that is exactly what Ghislaine Maxwell and her lawyers want. They want the water to be muddy. They want this to be dragged out. They want to appeal, and then they want to appeal the appeal, and they will do everything in their power to make that the case. Subpoenas were issued to a certain recipient after the government opened a grand jury investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and his possible co-conspirators. For obvious reasons and in keeping with its standard practice, the government did not notify the defendant or her counsel that it had issued the subpoenas. In response to receiving the subpoenas, the recipient advised the government that it believed that certain existing protective orders precluded full compliance. All right, so they were asking, they subpoenaed people in the case, right? Subpoenaed some information, subpoenaed some people. And what's going on is the defense is saying that the protective orders preclude full compliance, meaning they don't have to comply fully because of the protective order from the other case. See what they mean here by convoluted now, how it's intertwined? Accordingly, in or about February 2019, the government applied ex parte and under seal to each relevant court to request modification of the respective protective orders to permit compliance with the subpoenas. Accordingly, in or about February 2019, the government applied ex parte and under seal to each relevant court to request modifications of the respective protective orders to permit compliance with the subpoenas. In or about 2019, one court, Court 1, granted the government's application and permitted that the government share its order, and only that order, which itself prohibited further dissemination to the recipient. Subsequently, the second court, Court 2, denied the government's application. Because the relevant grand jury investigation remains ongoing, both Court 1 and 2 have ordered that the filings regarding the subpoenas remain under seal, except that both have expressly permitted the government to produce those filings to the defendant as part of its discovery obligations in this criminal case. The defense letter now seeks to use those discovery materials in the civil case. So what they're trying to do is use the materials from the discovery here in the criminal case over in the civil case. So she's trying to get the old 2-for-1 here, right? Remember, Preska made Virginia's newer lawyers, Cooper and I forget the other gentleman's name, destroy the copies of those documents. And basically Maxwell let me explain a little bit better than that. Of the documents that they received from Boyes and Schiller after they took over the case when Dershowitz filed the defamation against Boyes. So they got some information and some files from that case and brought it over into their case. And remember, Prescott decided that wasn't allowed, and she made them destroy those copies. So it's kind of the same situation here that Ghislaine Maxwell is looking at, right? She wants to use the information from one case to help her in the other case. And the government, the prosecution, is saying no way. Essentially, Maxwell is complaining that the government provided certain information to an unnamed person connected to the Epstein criminal investigation, and she wants to use those machinations to her advantage in at least one civil case, which again is presumably the ongoing release of Epstein materials connected to the Roberts controversy. And that, the government says, is absolutely not the point of the criminal discovery process. No, it is not. Discovery is to help the defense get themselves prepared for trial. Here's what we got. This is what you're looking at. Time to build your defense. It is not for you to wrangle and try and use loopholes and use what you find in discovery to help you in your civil case. There is good reason why both parties proposed and the court ordered a protective order that prevents the defendant from using materials obtained through the process of criminal discovery in any of the many civil cases in which she is or could become a party, the motion continues. To allow the defendant to do so would permit the dissemination of a vast swath of materials, including those that are confidential due to witness privacy interests, personal identifying information of third parties, and relevance in ongoing grand jury investigations. So, we know how Maxwell has conducted herself in the past, right? She's intimidated people. We know the way she treated Maria. We know the way she treated others. So we're going to let her have access to the private information of people involved in the case? Zero chance, the prosecution saying. No way in hell. Here, the government was particularly concerned about the defendant's interest in blurring these lines because, among other reasons, her counsel in the criminal case are also her counsel in the civil cases. And that's why I referred to the Boyes-Schiller situation with Dershowitz and Virginia having to get other legal counsel in that specific area, because it kind of parallels what's going on here. It would be grossly inappropriate for defense counsel to be permitted to sift through the criminal case discovery and cherry-pick materials they may believe could provide some advantage in their efforts to defend against accusations of abuse by victim plaintiffs, delay court-ordered disclosure of previously sealed materials, or any other legal effort the defendant may be undertaking at any particular time. And yet, that is what the defendant proposes. Again, it's all about slowing it down. That's what she's trying to do here, folks. All the other little minutia that's going on here, the legalese, it's fine and well. But Ghislaine Maxwell is trying to slow things down here. That's what her lawyers want. They want more time to formulate their case. They're hoping that perhaps some kind of miraculous evidence shows up, or that Ghislaine is able to work out a deal where she rats on other people, or whatever it may be. But I'll tell you what. They understand that they are in a very dangerous situation, legally speaking, and they understand that the ground that they're holding is untenable. Maxwell is currently in prison and awaiting trial on various charges related to her alleged role in Epstein's decades-long sex trafficking operation that preyed on young girls. Read both letter motions in full below. And both of the motions are here for you to check out. Just click the link, hyperlink, and you can go read them yourself. Try and digest them, navigate your way through the word soup of legalese. And, we keep it going, right? This is a huge deal. It just validates what we already knew, obviously, that there is still things going on behind the scenes. There's going to be more indictments. And, folks, this is far from over. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. I also just made a Facebook page for the show so we could all get together, chat, throw ideas off of each other, so all of you out there listening can interact with each other, and all of that good jazz. I will have that link also in the description box. If you folks are going out tonight, you know what I'm about to say, right? Enjoy yourselves, but please do not drink and drive. We'll be back tomorrow, and we will get back at it.